Hi, I'm Shan Wu with an Undercolor of Law analysis of a really extraordinary scene today in a New York federal courtroom with Judge Ho presiding over the Justice Department's effort to dismiss the case against the sitting New York Mayor, Eric Adams. It's extraordinary for a number of reasons, and one reason I want to take a look at this is because people may say, common sense, oh, a prosecutor can always dismiss a case. That's not entirely wrong, but really want to shine some light on what makes this case so odd and really so unusual, and what it really says about the state of the Trump Justice Department. So who came into court today to do the dismissal? No, not Donald Trump, but his acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bove, came into court by himself to argue before Judge Ho why the case should be dismissed. Now, federal courts, unfortunately, have no cameras in the courtroom because this would have been a really great picture. Having worked in leadership offices at DOJ, I can tell you that it's very, very rare that somebody as high up as the Deputy Attorney General, who's the number 2 at the department, or the Attorney General, actually comes into court and argues a case. Now, there's a tradition at DOJ where once a Supreme Court term, sometimes the Attorney General actually argues a case before the court. Now, why is this so rare? It's rare because this is a very large institution. I mean, you're talking about 100,000 employees, hundreds of lawyers, hundreds of cases. People at that level are not going to know anything about the particular case. They don't have the time to actually work up the details. They shouldn't be the ones to be making substantive points in court about a case, much less try it. Okay, so here, when Emil Bove shows up, he doesn't know anything about the case. He didn't work it up. He didn't do the investigation. It should be the prosecutors who worked on the case that would come to make arguments or to take actions such as this one to dismiss it. But of course, it's kind of apropos here, right? Because Bove doesn't know anything about the case. He, in fact, leaned into that to defend his reasons for dismissing it. If you recall, it seems like ancient history, but the acting United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Ms. Sasson, quit over the fact that Bove was ordering her to dismiss this case. And in his memo telling her to dismiss the case, he specifically said, it's nothing to do with the merits. Okay, so remember, merits are Eric Adams is charged with corruption and bribery. Bove says, nothing to do with the merits. This has to do with the fact that we think it interferes with his ability to govern. He can't help on immigration issues. More about that later. So you can say that, okay, Bove can talk about this case because he actually doesn't know anything about it. And he comes into court by himself, and another reason maybe he's by himself is, I think at this point, 7 prosecutors have resigned over Bove insisting that this case be dismissed. Recap, he was trying to find people to actually sign the document to dismiss it, and they were all quitting rather than doing that. And a reminder, you will continue to see a lot of comparisons to the Watergate Saturday Night Massacre, where President Nixon tried to find someone to fire the special counsel investigating him and couldn't. Nixon only had to go through 2 people. His Attorney General, bigwig political appointee, who quit on principle, and the second in command, the Deputy Attorney General, also quit, refused to do it, until Nixon got to then Mr. Bork, who later became a judge. He was like, okay, fine, I'll fire him. The difference, it can't be repeated too much, is those were only 2 people. They were the second one, not cabinet level, but the Attorney General cabinet level one. These are people who can quit over principle. They're not putting that much on the line. I mean, sure, you don't want to quit being Attorney General, but it's not like he's putting his livelihood at risk when he did that. These are the career people that are really putting themselves on the line to take a stand on this principle. And for 7 of them to quit, I mean, I've never heard of anything like that happening in any kind of case before. And the other important aspect is that these 7 people that quit, right, they're people who have ridden out the ups and downs, Democrats, Republicans, different bosses. They don't quit. They're career employees. So that is a very significant point, and maybe that's why Emil Bove was by himself Or maybe he just wants to look like a hero to his boss, Trump, his personal client as well, previously before he became the acting deputy attorney general. So as I said in this post, nothing quite says I've lost the support and confidence of career prosecutors like showing up by myself. He can't even get anyone to go with him, to sit at the table with him in court. So what is the hearing all about that Judge Ho was listening to us? Why isn't it just they dismissed the case, piece of paper, sign it, it's gone? Well, there is something in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure called Rule 48, governs dismissal. We'll put it up. And Section A, subsection A, by the government may, with leave of court, dismiss an indictment, information, or complaint. The government may not dismiss the prosecution during trial without the defendant's consent. So here, not a trial, it's an indictment. And they may, with leave of court. That's the critical point. That's why they have to go in and explain something to the judge. Usually this is a complete rubber stamp. Judge will hardly listen. I mean, in the sort of hundreds of run-of-the-mill cases I did, judge might say to the United States, do you have a motion? We'd say we move to dismiss. Maybe some counts being dismissed for a plea deal, or the person has completed community service. That's the end of the case. Here, though, Ho recognizes that it's a very unusual situation, and he listened to arguments. There are also amicus curiae briefs have been filed urging him not to dismiss this without making a full inquiry about why it was being dismissed. And even more unusually, they had Eric Adams have to testify to the judge. The judge wanted to make sure that Adams understood that this was a dismissal without prejudice. Very significant point. That means that DOJ could bring it back later on, even though they're dismissing the case right now. And the judge also wanted to hear from Emil Bove as to why it was being dismissed. And Bove's point was, Judge, you have no discretion over this whatsoever, ignoring the plain language of the rule, saying that we're not doing this on merits, we're doing this because it's interfering with the mayor's ability to govern the city of New York. He can't help us with immigration, national security issues, none of which, as you can well imagine, just with common sense, could possibly be a reason to dismiss a criminal case because, it's going to bother the person in their job performance. He's got a really important job, so we can't indict him. This is simply a poor echo of what they want to argue with Trump, right? He's so important. He's the president. He can't be bothered with defending himself against crimes that he's done, criminal charges over what he's done. That's what their point was. They being Bove and the DOJ, wanted to get away from this notion that there's some sort of quid pro quo going on here. And the quid pro quo, which is very important to Mayor Adams' understanding that this is a dismissal that could still come back to bite him, the quid pro quo could not be more obvious, which is they're saying quite overtly they want him to help with their immigration issues, and therefore they're going to dismiss the case. That's the benefit of the bargain. But just in case it's not crystal clear, let's actually listen to this absolutely humiliating interview that Mayor Adams did with Tom Homan, Trump's immigration czar here. Take a listen.
Andrew Yang, mayor. We call Eric Adams mayor. Never give up. New Yorkers never give up. People had me gone months ago, but you know what? I'm sitting on your couch.
You are sitting today talking about the new alliance between ICE and Adams. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Alliance was never severe.
Yeah,
and if he doesn't come through,
you're up early anyway.
If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City,
right.
And we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, "Where the hell?"
So Homan tells it like it is. He's laughing at the mayor of New York, saying if he doesn't abide by his agreement, then Homan's going to be back. And Homan says he'll be, quote, up his butt over this. So he clearly has the mayor in a compromising position, and he's going to use it to make him do what he wants. So it couldn't be more obvious what the agreement is there. Is it a criminal agreement in the sense of you could charge DOJ, charge Bove with some sort of quid pro quo criminal case? Questionable, because it's more of a political deal, and obviously this DOJ would never go there with it. And the usual quid pro quo is you have to prove there's a thing of value. And you could argue that here, this thing of value, which is they get his help with their immigration policies. They would like to deputize the entire New York City police force into being an arm of ICE. So you could argue that. Reality check is not going to happen under this DOJ, right? That's just totally impossible for that to happen. So at the end of the day, Ho has not yet issued an opinion, which is kind of interesting. He said he was going to think about it, issue the opinion, but the judge has done us a great service by bringing this into the sunlight, making Bove testify, making Adams say that he knows it's a dismissal without prejudice, and he's shining light on this, which is what we need to do here, because people need to understand what an extraordinary situation this is, what an extraordinary abuse of the criminal justice system this is, to use it as leverage on the mayor of New York to do what the White House wants. Otherwise, they'll charge him criminally. It doesn't get any more blatant than that. Now, Bove, as we know, was by himself at the counsel table and made the lone appearance for DOJ, but there was someone else in the courtroom watching him, which was Todd Blanche, his former co-counsel. They're both personal lawyers for Trump. They're both being nominated to high positions. Todd Blanche has been nominated to be the permanent Deputy Attorney General to #2. And Bove has been nominated to be his principal Associate Deputy Attorney General, the so-called PAYDAG, his right-hand man. So that's the sort of couple that we'll be seeing when those nominations are put forth. And unfortunately, likely will go through. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be calling and telling our representatives just what we think of this type of a corrupt practice. That's it for now. We'll be talking to you soon. Lots of things to keep our eyes on. Let me know in those replies and comments particular topics or cases you want some more discussion about. Do the same thing with me on Blue Sky. Looking forward to hearing from you.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.